forget. And that sentiment even stronger for some fantasy managers who still would have liked a better performance from their fantasy roster. Well, it's a new year, it's a new month, and we're all about looking ahead into the future. It's time to predict who will have the best bounce back seasons we fantasize about in a segment we are calling It Was All a Dream. Now, we are each going to pick one quarterback, one running back, and one wide receiver who we think will make us forget about their 2020 fantasy seasons and have a monster bounce back come 2021. Adam Rink, it's only right that I start this thing off with you.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to lead off at the quarterback position with Matthew Stafford. And I'm going to follow the lead of Sean McVay. It's funny, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan both not happy with their quarterback situation. Sean McVay's the guy who immediately broke up with his quarterback, sent him to Detroit. Kyle Shanahan slow playing it. And so now McVay is sitting here. He's not bashful about how much he loves Matthew Stafford. You know, like he's in a new relationship. Can't wait to share photos on Instagram and anything like that. It's like, give Jared a little bit of respect. But I love the outlook for Matthew Stafford. He's currently going off the board as the QB 12, which to me is ridiculous because he has the ability to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback this season. So I will happily take Matthew Stafford at quarterback. At running back, I'm going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a player that a lot of people were a little overly excited about last year. And I won't name names. I'll just say one of those people's names rhymed with Kimmy Checks. I'm just saying, she drafted him in the first round. The first round. And you know, listen, he was a disappointment based on his ADP, but he wasn't terrible. He was still a top 20 fantasy running back last season. He can improve. If he gets better near the goal line, he's going to improve those numbers. He's playing in Andy Reid's system, and he's going to exceed his third round ADP. This guy could easily be a top 8 fantasy running back this season. And at wide receiver, I'm going to go with DJ Moore, who last year, there was a little bit of a panic on the streets of London. Kimmy, if you don't know who the Beastie Boys are, you're not going to know the Smiths. So I don't even know why I tried. But listen.
Stop the slander. So early. Stop the slander.
DJ Moore, though, was the wide receiver 20 last season, but he was too inconsistent. Some weeks, double digits. Some weeks, less than 8 points. This year, hopefully that will change with Sam Darnold at quarterback. Even though Darnold has a history with Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore is still their deep threats. He was third in the NFL on deep targets last year, finishing third on target or yards per target. He's going to break out this year and be more consistent. So those are going to be my 3 guys.
Well, I love those 3. It's great. You always loved DJ Moore, though. You always talked about him. I got 3 guys here that they've had a little bit of injury, some COVID issues last year, but I think this year they're going to bounce back. They're all versatile. Starting off with my quarterback is Cam Newton, right? And this is the thing. What I love about his versatility is his ability to run in the red zone. You want those quarterbacks in fantasy that can give you both passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns. Now, we know the Patriots went out and they signed all these big tight ends. All that is to benefit Cam Newton. Let's remember what he did with Greg Olsen there in Carolina, like 1,000-yard receiving season. He loves tight ends, so I think Cam is going to have a huge time. And then also, he knows the playbook. He doesn't come in halfway through the season and has to try to learn the playbook and his teammates, like we heard Mike Giardi earlier this week. Cam understands his teammates, the playbook. But these type of plays here are what gets me excited about him. Next, I'm going to go to Joe Mixon. And what I love about Joe Mixon is this. No more Giovanni Bernard on third down. Period, point blank. Joe can run in between the tackles and outside, but now once you lose Giovanni Bernard, guess who becomes your third down option? Joe Mixon. So he should get more opportunities there catching the ball out of the backfield. He was a tremendous receiver and route runner there at Oklahoma, a guy who can line up out wide and run wide receiver routes as well. I think Joe Mixon is going to have a huge year. Plus, he's coming off that foot. Last but not least, and you know I dislike the Niners, but since this is fantasy football, I'm going to talk about Deebo Samuel. Again, versatility. He catches the ball, yes, but they use him as a running back as well. They love to give him a little fly sweep action. They'll line him up in the backfield sometimes. Kyle Shanahan finds a way to get Deebo Samuel the ball, and it's his run after catch is what's beautiful about it. Let's watch these highlights. Look, he gets the ball in his hands quickly, then he's like a running back in the field. And so if you're in a PPR, you're looking for a guy to touch the ball multiple ways or get multiple touches, in games. Deebo Samuel is a guy that can do that, as we just saw him hit the ball out of the backfield. Here goes another fly sweep action for you as well. Look, they're going to find ways to get him the ball in the goal line. That's their goal line back.
Whoever compiled those highlights, MJD, did you dirty. That was 3 plays against the Rams for a player on your mortal enemy of a team right there. Not cool. All right. Regular viewers of this show and this network will not be surprised by my quarterback pick for bounce back. It is one Carson Wentz. I mentioned earlier this week that I am what poker players call pot committed to Carson Wentz. I've spoken highly about him over the years. I expected a bounce back year last year. It didn't happen. I expect a bounce back year this upcoming season because new place, new faces, and really resetting himself. And he was in Fargo, back home in North Dakota, and he spoke to Valley News Live. And he talked about how last year COVID really screwed things up. He didn't have a chance to really sit down with the new faces and get to know players. And he said, quote, football last year was a lot less personal. Now, that fits with what I was telling you earlier this week, that, you know, he spent the spring in Indianapolis really getting to know his teammates. And there's a lot of good vibes around Carson Wentz right now. That is a big part. His game and who he is and what he's about is so mental. And right now, the mental part of things is looking really good and feeling really good from what I gather for Carson Wentz. So that's why I expect a bounce back year. And by the way, the team's really good. Didn't even get into the football part, but the team's really good. All right, my running back, Zeke. Now, look, I don't advocate for this usually. I don't want players to ignore the media. I like that they participate and conduct interviews and talk to us and let us know what's going on. Zeke, on the other hand, he had himself a quiet spring. He was kind of, you know, not avoiding the media, but he really wasn't out there and talking a lot. And I'm good with that, because that's what Zeke needs to do. He needs to have a quiet offseason, get back, get behind Dak Prescott. Don't feel like you got to do too much, because then you're putting the ball on the ground like he did last year. So I am expecting Ezekiel Elliott to bounce back. Now, here's a guy that I picked as a bounce back guy, and I'm throwing a flag on myself, because how can a 92 catch guy be a bounce back guy? But for Cooper Kupp, it wasn't about the volume. I was waiting for this. It wasn't about the sorry, Rank. It wasn't about the volume of catches. It was about the quality of catches. And the touchdowns were down from 10 to 3. The average per catch was down, the lowest of his career. So I expect more explosive plays. Deshaun Jackson is there to kind of open up things for everybody else. And everybody else. And Matthew Stafford is going to find Cooper Kupp. So big year for Cooper Kupp. Bounce back year from 92 catches.
All right. Those are all great answers. But sadly, the 3 of you are missing the 3 most obvious guys. A lot of NFC East chatter this morning, but I'm going to stick to it with Dak Prescott. This is the easiest one right now. Now, looking back at 2019, he was a top 5 fantasy quarterback. But at 2020, pre-injury, he was averaging over 420 yards per game through the air before he got taken out for the rest of the season. That was on pace to shatter every single type of fantasy record you can imagine. If you look at who he has on his offense, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, there's no reason he cannot do that again after bouncing back from this injury. Austin Eckler, on the other hand, another injury-prone guy. He was out for the majority of 2020, but in 2019, he racked up 93 catches for just under 1,000 yards, which as a running back is phenomenal. They double down in saying he will be involved in both the running and the passing game, which is what you want out of your fantasy running back. I'm going to go ahead and predict he's top 3 in fantasy this season. Last, not least, wide receiver Michael Thomas. I was standing the New Orleans Saints yesterday. I'm going to stick by my word on this one. He had an up and down season. I don't think at any point in 2020 he was fully healthy. Plus, he was suspended because of the altercation at practice. But the season before, he was a fantasy MVP, wide receiver number 1. We talked about this offense being a lot more explosive with Jameis Winston now as a starting quarterback. Michael Thomas is going to benefit from that. Those 3 guys, easy choice. Now, speaking of easy choices, we want to hear from you guys on social media. We're going to post a poll, okay? We're going to post a poll and see who has the best trio here. I'm not saying it was me, but I would say it was me. So if you want to go back me up on Twitter, please go do that. Go to Twitter, go to the GMFB account and vote who has the best trio. And we will reveal that later on in the show. Who is the